think if you're doing like, you're training on the old school bond and rapport, they used to say, sit across from the table and mirror and match their tone. And you can't do that anymore. So it's so funny. You have to learn almost a Zoom bond and rapport. And like, I very intentionally put this guitar back here because it's a great conversation piece, especially people who are interested. Yeah. Or, sometimes I'll have, like I'm wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt. I wore this shirt a couple months ago and someone's like, oh, I love Guns N' Roses. And it started off a great sales conversation. It's that human element. So yeah, I would say you can still use those same sales tactics, but you got to change the etiquette for Zoom.
That's a guitar. I thought it was a ukulele.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. This is an old school Les Paul.
Jim Tata, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Amazing, right?
Jim, you're in a band, is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I am in a band. I've dabbled in a bunch of bands between cover and original, and COVID. Full disclosure, COVID has definitely decimated a lot of musical prospects. But right now, I'm kind of a free agent, but I'm still playing, and I think I'm looking to get back into the cover band scene here in the Boston area. Yeah.
Seems like all the great bands come out of Boston. Why is that?
I think what happens is we all get very miserable in these long, cold winters and write beautiful music about it, as seen by it's -10 with the wind chill today. No, I think Boston's really a cultural hub for America, along with many others. But I think you'll see a lot of great music coming out of Boston because of kind of it's a great mix of progressive folks, as you can see with our colleges and our medicine, but then you also have a lot of blue collar folks, and we all are miserable to a sense because before the year 2000 our sports team sucked and we have terrible winters. And I think I think it's a combination of misery and hard-headedness and progressiveness creating art. So that's my opinion on it.
So you're watching or you're listening to Jim Tata. We're having a great conversation. He's channel account manager at HubSpot. Jim, what's one question that I didn't ask that you would love to answer?
Yeah, one question that I'd love to answer. Put me on the spot here with this one. Are we talking about HubSpot or about life in general?
Life in general, HubSpot, whatever it is. We're digging here.
I would say probably one question I would love for you to ask that I could answer is, how is HubSpot handling COVID right now?
How is HubSpot handling COVID?
And I'm speaking more or less from a personal standpoint because I can't speak for the company on that sense. But for me, it's really interesting. I live about an hour outside of Boston, north. I live in southern New Hampshire, and I was what they called a semi-remote employee before COVID hit. Mm-hmm. I would go in once or twice a week, important dates, because it's an hour drive, but I would work from home 3 to 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. And it's all in I think 2 weeks, it'll be officially a year since I've set foot in the HubSpot offices.
Wow.
Which has been odd and different and strange for me, because I like working from home. I got 2 young kids, but I need to go in and recharge and like plug into the mainframe for a bit.
Yeah.
So that's been tough. HubSpot has allowed us to go fully remote, which has been such a blessing with, the kids being home, at least for part of 2020. Now they're back in school. But I think HubSpot has done such a phenomenal job in adapting with COVID. As you can see by our results. I mean, I think a big reason for that is there are so many businesses that are remote now that didn't plan on being remote.
Yeah.
And they need a sales tool or a marketing tool like HubSpot because they need a centralized single source of truth. So I would say both internally and how we're handling things at HubSpot, allowing employees to go remote, and then externally allowing companies who are having a tough time navigating COVID. I think, you never want to say there's a silver lining to this terrible year we've had, but I think, the silver lining we're going to get out of this as a society is that remote work isn't as difficult as we thought. And I think HubSpot's been an exemplary example or exemplary kind of player in that game.
How many employees does HubSpot have now?
Let me verify because it's changing because we're hiring so much. I want to say it's around 3,000, but let me make sure. let me see. Oh yeah, 30 right as of 2020 it was 3387. So I guess my mind was right there. Yeah. So 3,000 worldwide, and headquarters is in Cambridge, Mass, and I feel very lucky to be within an hour of there.
So HubSpot's like this international company, has locations around the globe. They have
Mhm.
over 3,300 employees. And one day they just transitioned to full remote.
Mhm. And we've always had fully remote employees even prior to the pandemic,
Mhm.
because great people, there are certain great people who can't be within striking distance of an office. But it's just now, even folks like me, or there's a lot of folks who live right in downtown Boston, or at least in surrounding areas, who all of a sudden can't go to the office. And the HubSpot offices are awesome. They were, you know, the candy wall, the coffee garden, the beer garden.
Mhm.
It was an awesome place. I actually feel bad for the folks who actually did rely on the office space 5 days a week who can't. It's been a tougher transition for them.
Yeah. So think about the technology that has to be in place to continue on communicating, documenting, growing, communicating the vision, communicating outcomes, designing all this stuff going on. And HubSpot had actually positioned themselves to excel in that environment. And consequently, the tools that they design help you to do the same with your company.
I think that's very clearly and succinctly put. That's exactly it. And I think that's why we were able to navigate this pandemic in such as smooth as we could. I wouldn't call it smooth, but in a fairly smooth manner.
Yeah. Even my organization, we're way more remote now. Just even people that usually would come into HQ, we're working from home more, and things are like, you worry about the culture, you worry about the momentum, you worry about all the little side conversations and all the value that brings. But somehow, actually, we've replaced it. Not that we don't want to see each other, but it's like we're synced in.
Mhm. Let me ask you this. I'm going to turn the tables, ask you a question. As a business owner, it seems like you're open-minded and you're ready to adapt. What are some of the benefits you've seen as a business owner to this pandemic? What's your silver lining?
So there's a cost of travel that to and from the office. Okay. And so you have expenses, but you're a little bit disconnected, or maybe that's a lot more time away from your family that you could hang up from work, document the outcome, do whatever, and then turn around and be immediately engaged in with your family. The other thing is, like, you used to be like, oh, be quiet in there because I'm on a call. But now it's like, the kids run through the background, the dog walks through, and everybody's like, oh, you're a real human.
It's so funny, being in sales, we learn a lot about, sales tactics. And to your point, what used to be seen as a detriment is now endearment. It's like, hey, we're all human. We're all going through this. Sorry, my dog's
Mhm.
barking. Sorry, my 3-year-old's crying. They're like, no. And then you get this human connection and it makes the sale easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there.
I've been on calls where, like, the kids pops in and asks if they can have candy. I've been on a call where you could hear the chicken barking or chirping, whatever a chicken does outside the window. It's like we have these really funny things that happen, but it makes work more fun.
Mhm. It does. It does. And it's so funny. When I was going into the office, I would leave my house at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, get home at 6:30 or 7 at night. But 2 hours of each bookend was traveling. To your point, the cost of travel, not just in hard dollars, but in time. And now I'm on my computer starting at 7 a.m. I'm signing off at 7 p.m. But I'm still doing things for my house and my family in between. So I would
Mhm.
argue net, my corporation or my company is getting more hours out of me now.
Yeah.
And then one last funny story that one other silver lining of this pandemic for me is I uh, I leased a brand new truck in October of 2019, and I was so excited, and I was like, okay, but I drive a lot, so
Mhm.
I negotiated a 15,000 mile a year lease,
Mhm.
and then the pandemic hit. So in almost 2 years, a year and a half, realistically, I've only done 8,000 miles on the truck, and I should be at around 20 or 25.
Wow.
So it's to your point, you hate to put it in such rigid terms, but there's literally a cost there's literally cost savings that if you can step back, realize, and take advantage of it, you can make the best of this crappy past year we've had.
Jim, this has been fun, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think the folks that have listened to that are, thinking about, marketing automation, sales automation, how do I move my company to be more effective online, to be more relevant, to compete? It's HubSpot's a beautiful option for a lot of companies.
We understand there's a lot of competition out there, which is why we feel we're the best for scaling companies, and that's kind of what we've been focused on. And I think it's an excellent tool. I can tell you, before I was even an employee and before I became very biased, it changed my life as an individual sales contributor. So I'm a believer in it, and if I'm ever not working for HubSpot down the line, I'm sure I'm going to try to use it wherever I go because of the friction it's reduced and the time and the stress it saved me.
All right. Jim, you're a great guest on the ROI Online podcast, man.
Well, Steve, thanks for having me. I think this is like my first official business I mean, I've been on like fun music podcasts, but this is my first official business podcast. So thanks for having me. And I know you and I have a lot of conversations ahead of us, since we'll be continuing to work together.
All right. Awesome. Thanks. And that's a wrap.
All right.